You've probably heard of it already. It's about sharks and the consumption of shark fin. I'm going to tell you what the fuss is all about tonight. Before I start, I have a little confession to make. I'm afraid of animals. I'm afraid of the sea. I'm not a vegetarian nor a diver, but I'm a shark conservationist. Funny, isn't it? But before I became one, I swam with a shark on a family holiday back in 2010 with my family in the Philippines. Whenever the spotter guy on the boat saw a shark, he shouted, "Butanding, butanding, butanding." That means whale shark in Tagalog. Then everybody, the tourists on the boat, would jump into the sea to swim with the creature. They came back to the boat looking really happy. I guess there were about 10 sightings of whale shark that day. Well, I was the only person who didn't see that many whale sharks because I was so freaked out by the idea of swimming in the sea, even with a life jacket on. Look at that, chunky. But I did, in the end, once, and I couldn't function in the water. I clutched the guide hand really tightly. I kept my head above the water trying to breathe, even though I had a snorkel on. Look at that. But anyway, the guide pushed my head under the water, and I saw something I had never seen before. This huge, massive creature, a whale shark. I was so up close to the animal. It was peaceful, but really shy. It melted my heart. At that moment, I was overwhelmed, but I had a sudden realization that, seriously, not all sharks are the same. And I want to tell you that the movie Jaws did a really good job in turning sharks into monsters, ones that we should avoid or destroy. And in 2006, my husband, who was my boyfriend then, he visited my parents, and he knew that we all eat shark fin soup, and he showed us this. After watching the video, my mom, she's very traditional, she said, "Ayah, why did he show us video like this? How am I going to handle shark fin soup next time when I go to a Chinese banquet?" And that's exactly what my husband wanted my mom to say. He wanted all of us to think twice before eating a bowl of shark fin soup next time. After that, he started working with a fellow photographer and a few activists in Hong Kong to reveal the truth about shark finning. He hoped Hong Kong people to stop eating shark fin soup. I did because I wanted to show him some moral support, and I do think that shark finning is a cruel and wasteful practice, but my family did not. In fact, my uncle runs a few Chinese restaurants in Hong Kong. I used to eat a lot of shark fin soup in the past. I actually like the taste. But at my grandmother's 80th birthday, which is a few years ago, I didn't eat the soup, and my relatives thought that I was disrespectful and very odd. My husband, he's an activist. He hated the idea of people eating shark fin soup, so he protested it by flipping the bowl over on the table right before the soup was poured into it. I told you again, my family is very traditional. No one said anything at that point, but I don't think anyone spoke to him for the rest of the evening. So you see, rejecting a bowl of shark fin soup, it's almost unacceptable in Chinese family. In 2010, my husband, again, he introduced me to the founders of the Hong Kong Shark Foundation. They offered me a job. I took it because I thought it was a great opportunity to do something good for the environment. So I went to tell my parents and my friends about this new job, which I think was very meaningful. Instead of congratulating me, they asked me why I wanted to protect the fish. And some of my friends said to me, "Oh, I really admired you working for an NGO, but what do you really do for sharks?" For some reason, they pictured me holding up a banner protesting outside Chinese restaurants just like this. That's easy, I'm telling you. Promoting shark conservation in Hong Kong is tough. I'll show you what I do. We organize a plank mob in the busiest spot in Mong Kok. And here's me again talking about sharks to kindergarten kids. We do all sorts. And then some of my friends said to me that, "Oh, I'm not going to stop eating shark fin soup because of you and what you do." Fair enough. But a few really close friends of mine said to me that, "Why don't you do something more worthwhile? For example, helping children in need and, you know, the homeless and the poor." I know it's important to help them, but I also think that it's equally important to protect the environment because humans and nature are one. I talked to a lot of people about shark conservation, and a lot of them told me they won't stop eating shark fin soup because, first of all, They're afraid that sharks will eat them if they don't eat sharks. To me, it sounded like we better cut down all the trees to make paper so that these trees won't grow old and fall on us and kill us. And some of them said that they're really ugly, they're not worth protecting. But hey, do ugly people deserve the same treatment? And some of them say to me that, it's really wasteful not to eat shark fin soup because the soup is already cooked and the fin's already cut off. Well, talking about wasteful, okay, what about the leftovers from the households and restaurants in Hong Kong every single day? And these people also say that it's so expensive, the soup is really expensive, you'd be stupid if you don't eat it. Do you think so? In general, as I open my mouth to explain why there is an issue with shark fin, people lose interest. And all these naysayers made me wonder whether I was wasting my time doing something that no one cares about or understands. But I didn't give up, because I believe that when something keeps popping up in your life, it means you have to face it and deal with it. For me, this was shark fin soup. I'm going to tell you about the jobs that I did before to give you an idea why shark fin soup was a recurring issue. I worked in an auction house before, a big one. It was an extravagant world full of high net worth individuals, record-breakingly expensive artworks, luxury jewelry, and rare fine wines. Organizing private dinners for top clients was one aspect of that job. I once asked my manager, hey, is there a more eco-friendly alternative to replace shark fin soup? She said nothing can compare to that soup because it's prestigious. It's a status symbol. Well, nowadays, shark fin soup is available at so many restaurants, high to low end. Why is it prestigious? I was invited to a staff lunch at a Michelin-starred restaurant. Everybody had shark fin soup except me. My refusal made me seem unsophisticated. I was thinking, how about you lot? You make all these slurping noises when you eat the soup. And another job I did was to organize weddings for a wedding planner. You probably think that dealing with bridezillas was the worst aspect of that job. But no, they were not a problem to me, not at all. The hardest thing in that job was to witness how some environmentally conscious couples had massive arguments with their parents because they wanted to have a no shark fin banquet. Without the soup, the guests would think the hosts were either too mean or too poor, so the host would lose face. But normally, most of the time, the children would give in to their parents because they understood that the soup would give a lot of face to their parents. Face. Do you know that a lot of people nowadays, they go to banquet and they think it's really uncool for people to serve shark fin? And one thing that really struck me at that job was one occasion that someone from our crew even asked the waiters to save the crew the leftover shark fin soup at the end of the banquet. I never thought that shark fin soup was such a big deal and that was so unmissable. I still have a lot of fear for animals and the sea. I haven't seen the underwater world, but I promote shark conservation. So all this made me wonder why I'm doing what I'm doing. Talking about fear, do you know that twice as many people are killed from falling vending machines than from being attacked by sharks? That's true. And imagine the number of people enter the sea every day. You know, they go swimming, snorkeling, surfing, windsurfing, you name it. And how often do you hear about shark attacks? Not a lot. There's no scientific evidence to show that shark fin has any nutritional value. We only have, talking about Hong Kong people, we normally have shark fin soup when we're invited to banquets, so only a few bowls a year. So it's clearly not a necessity in our diet. Our bodies don't need that to survive. Has any one of you tried this on its own, Israel, or have it cooked another way? I did. It tastes of nothing. It somehow smells of urine as well for some reason. I'm not joking. Do you want to smell it? So you might ask, where does the taste of a soup come from? Well, thanks to these flavorsome ingredients such as chicken, chicken broth, sesame oil, soy sauce, ginger, crab meat, Chinese mushroom, bamboo shoots, you name it. So with or without the fins, the soup tastes the same. Some people say that I like shark fin because of the texture. It's squidgy, it's chewy. Well, how about this? You go to 7-Eleven to get this imitation shark fin soup, $15, and I'll tell you, see what I mean by that. You know, it tastes the same, and the texture, this glass noodle can give you that texture as well. Scientists say that somewhere between 26 to 73 millions of sharks are killed every year. But unfortunately, there's no precise amount of how many sharks are killed for their fins every year. It's not just a Chinese problem, because in Western countries, there is a huge demand for shark meat for fish and chips. And a lot of undercover investigations on fishing boats have shown that many sharks have their fins sliced off while they're still alive, being thrown back into the sea to die. So where do the fins go? According to a Hong Kong trade data in 2011, 83 countries exported more than 10,300 tons of shark fins to Hong Kong last year. Any idea how many shark fins in 10,300 tons? Have a guess? 10,300 tons of shark fins equates 958 double-decker buses, assuming one double-decker bus weighs 12 tons. I'm not joking. And let's just give you half of the volume of half of the global trade of shark fin. And before I became a shark conservationist, I thought there was only one type of sharks, and it was called jaws. But in fact, there are 480 shark species on this planet. Shark fins became popular only since the 70s. 4 decades later, right now, 1/3 of them are already listed as threatened or near threatened with extinction. What's worse is that restaurants goers in Hong Kong, they have no idea or no way in telling which species they are consuming. The best fin, people know, the best fin for soup is called Tin Gao Qi. In English, the translation should be sky number 9. What does that mean? How do we know that we're not consuming an endangered species? A shark fin trader in Sheung once told me that don't worry about sharks going extinct because they reproduce like cockroaches. Quite the opposite. In fact, many of the shark species, they take as long as 25 to 30 years before they mature enough to have babies. Unlike humans, they carry the babies for up to 2 years before they give birth. And they give birth to only a few young, as you can see. Sharks, they're at the top of the marine ecosystem, meaning what? If the populations change, the populations of the fish beneath them will also change, including what we eat, seafood, a lot of people's favorite. Theoretically speaking, if we take sharks out of the system, then the ocean as a source of food to human beings could be compromised. I'm not a scientist, I can't prove that, but that sounds scary to me. Sharks are not necessary in our diet, but even unborn sharks are to be consumed. Yet why should Hong Kong people care? I ask because if the pattern of trade and consumption continues the way it is going right now, my next question is, do sharks stand a chance to reproduce enough to support our demand? Can it be sustainable? I don't think so. Speaking from my conscience, most of the time, humans take a lot of destructive, irresponsible, and unloving actions just to satisfy their wants, not their needs. Humans also kill animals and turn that into a profit-driven trade that only benefits a tiny fraction of people. That's against the law of nature. I always thought that my recurring issue was shark fin soup, but I was wrong. There are more than just one issue, and they're deeper. They're the unnecessary beliefs and behavior that people don't want to let go of. Think about faith, indifference, satisfying our appetites and wants while refusing to acknowledge the consequence of that will drive other species to extinction. Look at these. From what I've been doing, I found the answers to why I do what I do, because I had hesitations all the time. It's not just about protecting the environment or saving a species. It's about learning what makes a good or bad tradition. It's also about letting go of harmful beliefs and behavior. Even though there's no scientific evidence to show that what will happen to you and me and the environment when there are no more sharks. But does that mean that we should take the risk to keep consuming something so unnecessary? Scientists say that if sharks are to be consumed the way they are right now, they will probably be gone in 10 years or less, think about the effect that will do on the food chain, that including us. I do have a plea to make. I need your help and creativity to keep sharks alive. I don't have a surefire solution to the problem. So could you help me think of one? And if there's one idea that's worth spreading, I would say this is a global problem. But we as Hong Kong people, we can make a disproportionate difference by the choices we make. Thank you.